The Maid at Work, Overseas Labor Education Program, or the proposed book, a historic experience-based approach to labor challenges and problems, prepared by Migrant Workers' Voice Organization, Voice for the Voiceless, Edition 1 by Kionde Abdallah. This book has been developed for the purpose of migrant labor motivation, sensitization, guidance, and counseling, as well as international labor rights awareness, teaching and aiding migrant workers to have simplified direction and guidance in regards to safe migration, human rights awareness, and mindset change to indigenous and international migrant community, aimed at creating awareness among migrants from being exposed to human trafficking and smuggling, which can render them vulnerable to violence, labor exploitation, and abuse. The book has been developed basing on experience and real-life situation mainly faced off at work overseas, depending on 25 principles as summarized in its purpose, that is, promoting safe labor migration, human rights awareness, motivation and mindset change, and guidance plus counseling. This book holistically highlights key points mainly to be noted by the vulnerable migrant community, just to be aware of in case they are rendered prone to any violations once they read the book and understand its content. They will never be caught unaware or short of any informed response. Problems pertaining the labor migration industry. It gives an experience-based understanding and management of problems pertaining the labor migration industry. The book enlightens more on human rights awareness, guidance and counseling, change of mindset, and hints more on the tips about safe migration in general. This being the first edition of the book, it entails most important notes on each subject as mentioned above, and it's expected that students should have mastered the following notes at heart by the end of the course coverage. Learners and trainers are being in position to safely migrate without inconveniences. Learners and trainers will no longer be ignorant of migrants' human rights. Learners and trainers will have changed mindset to work hard and develop themselves without obstruction in case they have a chance. Learners and trainers are able to adapt and fit in new environments after being aware of his or her strengths without being institutionalized, exploited, or abused. Learners and trainers will ably be in position to own the process and learn how to stand up for their rights with or without calling for support from the exterior or authority, thus keeping their jobs without having first losing them before rescuing themselves, and so much more. And we will start with mindset. Mindset means the established set of attitude held by someone. With the right mindset, you can motivate those you lead, teach and love to transform their lives and your own. Mindset change. Why mindset plays a major role in both motivation and psychology. While mindset plays a major role in both motivation and reaching your goals, your mindset plays a critical role in how you cope with life's challenges in school, at work, whereas other new environments. There are two types of mindsets. We have the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So, fixed mindset. People with fixed mindsets believe that these qualities are inborn, fixed and unchangeable. They commonly say, that is how I am, let me be. And such people may find it hard to fit in new environments, adaptive to nature, and hard to adapt to nature. So, growth mindset. Those with growth mindset, on the other hand, believe that those abilities can be developed, changed, and strengthened by the way of commitment and hard work, adaptive to nature, that is. Failure is an opportunity to grow, that is under growth mindset. Fixed mindsets tend to create a need for approval. I have seen so many people with fixed mindsets pursuing goals of proving themselves in their workplaces, careers, and their relationships. Every situation they encounter in life calls for confirmation of their intelligence, personality, or character, self-approval, that is. Every situation is evaluated. Fixed-minded people always ask questions like these below. Will I succeed or fail? Will I look smart or dumb? Will I get rich or poor? Will I be accepted or rejected? Will I look like a winner or loser? Will I die or not? Will I contract the disease or not? Will I fall down or not? Will they understand me or not? All those are questions people with fixed mindset have by themselves. On the other hand, growth mindset results in hunger for learning, curiosity. They have interest for improvement and change, a desire to work hard and discover new things, tackle challenges and grow as a person. When people with growth mindsets try and fail, they tend not to view it as a failure or disappointment. Rather, it's a learning experience that can lead them to grow and change. Both mindsets can be tamed right from childhood, where in a fixed mindset, children who are taught that they should look smart instead of learning to be smart. Such children tend to have a fixed mindset. They become more concerned with how they are being judged and fear that they may not live up to their expectations. Whereas in growth mindset children who are told to explore, to embrace new experiences, thinking out of the box in general, and take advantage of challenges as they come. In another view, people with growth mindsets, rather than seeing mistakes as setbacks, they are willing to try new things and make errors, as they're all in the name of learning and achieving their potential. When facing a problem, such as trying to look for a new job, people with growth mindsets show greater resilience. They are more likely to persevere in a pool of setbacks, while those with fixed mindsets are more liable to give up. Awukintegeeza nti bo abaina fixed mindset obwongo obutakyuka ebizibu bijja bwanika mangu talemerako. The following statements are really critical, so I would love you to listen to them. Mindset questions. The following statements can help you understand your mindset status if you decide which one you agree with most. Self-mindset discovery, on-spot mindset check. So as we look through, you can answer to yourself yes or no. First of all, people have a certain amount of intelligence and there isn't any way to change it. Yes or no? No matter who you are, there isn't much you can do to improve your basic abilities and personality. People are capable of changing who you are. You can learn new things and improve your intelligence. People either have particular talents or they don't. You can just acquire talent for things like music, writing, art, or athletics. Studying, working hard, and practicing new skills are all ways to improve your talents and abilities. If you tend to agree with statement 1, 2, and 5, then you probably have more fixed mindset. But if you agree with statements 3, 4, and 6, then you probably tend to have a growth mindset, and that's for sure. It's recommended that parents can always take steps to ensure that their children develop growth mindsets, and often through efforts, acknowledgements and encouragement, other than focusing on results. Whereas adults at work should invest in more acknowledgements towards the boss or the work giving thanks rather than investing in emotions based on judgments. For example, instead of telling a child that he or she is smart, a parent may commend a child for their hard work on a project and they describe what they like most about their child's effort. To say, Katugambe, I really like how you choose the colors of that picture. And on the other hand, in adults at work, a worker may commend her boss for their salaries and facilitation and attract their attention through mentioning what they want to hear about their actions. For example, I really like how you pay my salary in time and care about me. Now, your boss dies to hear a thanks from you, the same you want to hear from him or her each time you make an effort. Therefore, try to give it before you are forced. It will only create a vacuum for you to feel the same, but also laying a soft landing for your mistakes or shortfalls. Mukama otasobola kunenya nnyo ng'ate osiima gwasooka omusiima nti webali kunsasulanga mu budde, webali kunfaako. Kikugondeza mu biseera ebizibu mu nsobi z'oba okoze ku mulimu. Ate teriyactinga nnyo ng'abantu abalala oba ku bakozi abalala abatafaayo abatamusiima. By focusing on the process rather than the outcome, adults can help young ones best understand their efforts. Hard work and dedication can lead to change, learning and growth both now and in the future. A worker should learn to show the boss what he or she pays for in her and vice versa. It's a two-way traffic thing. Omuyamba muwa service naye akuyamba okuwa omulimu. So, ways of triggering a mindset change or ways to change the mindset shift. 1. Learn to mediate. 2. Make personal development a priority for yourself, your job and salary first. 3. Retain your brain by focusing on positive changes per day. 4. Write your postmortem. Look into your story. Okay? And 5. Focus on the long-term vision. 6. Imagine the inevitable. 7. Do the dirty work yourself, not for others. 8. Listen to trusted outside perspectives. Take the positive always and leave the negative. Leave it out. 9. Accept that change will happen with you or without you. 10. Hire more women. I'm right about that. 11. Make yourself vulnerable for others. 12. Eliminate your sunk cost. If we can go deeper, how dogs help you mentally and lessons drawn. Pets, especially dogs and cats, can reduce stress, anxiety and depression, ease loneliness, encourage exercise and playfulness, and even increase your quadrivalvular health. Caring for an animal can help a child grow secure. Pets also provide valuable companionship for adults. So, what are dogs thinking? And this is a strong point. The security it provides in defense of its masters and other strength. Our dogs also think a lot about how we are feeling. In fact, their brains are in tune to the inflections of emotion in our voice in a similar way to humans. Their brains are constantly in tune to their humans, which is why they are so good and comforting to us. And the comfort they offer to humans only, love and security, earns them a living without having to hunt harder for food. A dog is a tough and capable animal that can choose if it just wants to grab and bite everyone around in order to get what to eat. Rather, it decides to offer love and security in a very calm way, especially at its own master, something that has earned it a living without having to hunt so hard. A dog's master feels motivated and driven to provide its dog's meat as a friend without having to subject it to any conditions of work. That way, if any human being must fit in any society or working under any master, it borrow a leaf from the dog's behavior in order to survive peacefully. So, embwa eno ogiraba nti ogiwa emmere n'ekwagala wenga mukama waayo. Era eddembe okusalawo nti kannume buli gw'ensanga esobola okulya esobola okukikola. Naye ekukuuma bukuumi, n'ekusanyusa, n'ekuzannyisa, n'ogiwa ekyokulya. Kigonza obulamu bwayo naawe bw'olina okukola ng'omuntu akozesa omuntu oba gwe bakozesa. Let's look at the bucket of love. Assuming 30 people are standing in a circle, sharing a bucket full of love, and one of them stops the flow of the bucket, how will the others receive love after the short circuit? Learn to let things go and ease tensions. Let's also look at the stone and burning charcoal in a box. Assuming we had two paper boxes, a burning charcoal and a stone. A stone is put into one of the box and the burning charcoal is put in the other. What will your expectations after 30 minutes be for each substance staying in the box? Obviously, the stone will stay intact, but the burning charcoal will move out after burning the paper box. Which one is your brain now? That's a very big question. Ebuuze gw'ogwawa mu ebyo ebibiri, ejjinja mu boxi oba eryanda mu box. Eryanda lijja kukwaka lyotye n'ekibox, ejjinja lisigalawo. So, are you in the state of a burning charcoal or a static stone? Looking further, think out of the box today and begin to explore your horizons. Secondly, always be different and outstanding if you must prosper. Be yourself and don't live like others. Respect your choices and keep trust. Don't be moved by obstacles because they are meant to be anyway. The builder, without challenges, you can't grow. Buli ky'owulira kikulemesa ku kyoyagala okukola byebyo bikuyamba okula. So, tebikukanga. If you can go ahead and look further, one day there was an older builder who used to build nice houses. He had retired for some time from work. One morning, he was recalled by his boss to build him one new last house. Before he completely laid down his tools, the boss provided all the necessary monies to the builder for buying materials for the house. The builder took the money to buy all the materials. Unfortunately, since it was the first time for the boss to provide him money for the material, yali abyeguliranga ebizimbisibwa kulono yazimu agenda abigule. He chose to buy all the materials cheaply in order to save. Okay? N'akekkereza alyenjawulo. He went ahead to build the house in a very nice looking shape. Suddenly, on finishing the house, the boss handed him over the key and told him that the house you've built is yours as a gift for all the work you have done for me since your youthful stage. The builder fell down and collapsed. On account, he knew very well that all the materials he used were very, very poor materials. In building his own house, jenga alowooza omugagga gwa bye akubye enjawulo naye yeeyawudde ku nnyumba eyiye. We can expand further and go to section 2. Children and elderly handling. This is very important for you to learn. Given a task of handling vulnerable ages in a family is a really challenging, tough job. However, it's very well paying if one masters the techniques in handling them. Working with an elderly or a young one in a family is a task and one needs to be responsible enough, patient, kind, with a high sense of assertiveness, with a tolerant and flexible character. Dealing with children in particular, one must know that children like jokes at any time out teasing one another. Children never know when to stop teasing. A character also cuts across in the old age. What you take serious, they take as a joke and normal. Take an example of your own child at home that never recognizes your age as being the mother before jumping up to stretch you first. Try to throw something at you because of temper. Actually, they don't do it because they don't love you, rather because of love and the sense of disappointment in you. while others can even obstruct your work by simply making themselves carry out without anything such that they can attract your attention. Some families have worse and stubborn kids, and you may find that their parents have already given up on them, and what they only wish from you as a maid is to also understand them the way they are, and if possible, to let them be and not you to start grooming them to change, because that is not your work. Though sometimes you can attract them to change by good examples. For example, children may spit at you, but you don't spit back. Rather, you can react back through showing a good example. That is, call the child to the trash or the dustbin, to the trash can, and begin trashing in the can as he watches, or outside, and spit as they watch. Show the toilet for the proper disposal of the waste matter or anything else that deserves to go to the toilet. And do not criticize or abuse of what they have done previously. Rather, keep on challenging them by doing the right thing. Don't fuss with your boss's children. Rather, understand and receive them in the way they are. And your role is to take care of them and make sure you attract them to love you. However, if you find them extra teasing and torturing, you have a right to log a formal complaint or report in written to their parents and keep a record for record keeping with your company, embassy, and the voice, but not beating them or showing them attitude about their actions. Learn to tolerate them. And reporting should be the least you can do, but not often. For the elderly, a maid should be very understanding with much respect of the age. This also calls for a higher sense of tolerance. Elders tend to behave a bit like children, though more commanding and demand for attention with respect. Old age is a very challenging stage in life, especially for grandfathers to manage, since their sexual desires tend to increase, unlikely in grandmothers. Therefore, maids should be careful while dealing with them. Don't accept and avoid touching their sensitive parts while bathing them unless you are a professional nurse. Always call for help from their family in case you must do that. Family members should be around to avoid risk of rape. Restrain from handling their medications when you have no medical background yourself, since it can backfire in case he dies after your attempts to give treatment. Another thing, be friendly and always have a smile for both ages, since their families have trust in you for their relatives' comfort. For kids, joke where they joke and learn that the elderly will always have less time for joking, so don't get pissed, but adapt to that for as long as you get your salary. Lastly, caring for those vulnerable ages can easily award you a long-lasting, rewarding relationship. That is with your boss, as long as those you care for still exist. With good care you give them, you'll always be commended and seen as a family member. Section 3, we look at seeking medical attention. In case of sickness or unwellness, always stand firm to express it to your boss confidently and politely without panicking, because it's your right to get treatment by them. In case they cannot listen, avoid threatening statements like, "Take me to the office," "Take me back home," and changing to another house instead of insisting on treatment. Rather, you can make a polite withdrawal from the daily work on request to get medical examination and treatment. Don't confuse your boss instead of seeking medical attention with threats of going back home at the same time. Oyagala bujjanjabi, nkifo ky'okugamba abantu bali mu ddwaliro nsaba kugenda ku check up oba nsaba ku ddagala ate owooza banzizeyo ku office. I want to go home, because that is not the way to go. Remember that statements like that may literally mean breach of contract to a boss who doesn't care. By the way, some bosses set traps like that, especially when they're tired of you. So the way react, nebyo baddamu kimataginga nnyo. They target when you complain and they try to pretend not to understand you. Eventually, when you get overwhelmed, then you are forced to request for termination by yourself. Wali kyabadde ayagala okukola akatego aba awangudde. So be wise on what you say to them. Take me back home or office. This alone in the contract sense means you have intended the contract termination, and therefore you'll be required to compensate your boss before you leave. Even if your boss who denied you everything, even when it's your salary, he may still claim you have bleached fast. Therefore, always be assertive in your approach, especially when seeking for medical attention. And be open, express your pain to the doctor in case you are taken for treatment. Some domestic workers shy about expressing their initial feelings, and they are given Panadol simply because they are shy to say something is happening to them. Conditions like UTIs are very rampant among migrant domestic workers due to the fact that these workers tend to share toilets with family members, something that has left them more prone to contractions. Going further to section 4, Reporting to police and labor dispute resolutions or call centers. Reporting to police is one good thing, especially in crime of torture, rape, and threats of death. However, it's not advisable for one to make it a habit of running to police to report even in matter where emotions are invested, i.e. labor disputes. Note that the above-mentioned cases need content proof. In case of matters of sexual harassment, in Arab countries, the victim is required to keep a high sense of privacy towards the family members of the suspect. Keeping evidence is key to only be revealed at the agencies of authority, probably those that can be compromised in defense of the victim, i.e. the embassy officials, migrant workers associations, foreign company offices, and your country office. Making alarm about the whole issue may put your life in danger, especially when the relatives of accused get into protectionism of their own. You must be sure of your defense and be ready in case agencies of authority engage your matter. It's not advisable for you to overreact and involve police, especially in Arab countries, since this risks the accused's life to be sentenced to death under Sharia law once proof is availed, and this may also lead to the disintegration of the accused family once the penalty of death has been laid on the accused, and the process may get longer. Examples of labor disputes that can be resolved through mediation approach. Remember, if one makes it a habit to make everything a police case, it means there will not be love for work, and this will always attract a very bad reaction of the boss towards the worker, as it will seem like a war since everything the boss does is seen as a crime to be reported to police. In the right approach, issues like salary denial, food denial, sexism, denial of treatment may not need immediate police intervention, rather mediation and arbitration through the labor court or responsible agencies, that is, the embassy intervention, your foreign office, your country company office, migrant workers associations, voices, organizations, and trade unions, since they may at times require counseling and guidance sessions. Human Rights Watch and migration. In the wake of migrations, many reasons have been attached to the trend and have attracted human rights violations. According to the international human rights norms, which are based upon dignity of every person, migrants enjoy the fundamental rights afforded to all persons regardless of their legal status in the state, according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Right to life, liability, personal security. Freedom from slavery, freedom from torture and degrading treatment, right to recognition as a person before the law, right to equality before the law, right to remedy by competent tribunal, freedom from arbitrary arrest and exile, right to fair public hearing, freedom from interference with privacy, family, home, and correspondence, freedom to belief and religion, right to free movement home and away, right to marriage and family, right to own property, right to asylum in other countries from persecution, right to nationality and freedom to change it, freedom from discrimination, freedom from arbitrary arrest and detention, right to presumption of innocence until proven guilty, freedom of opinion and information, right of peaceful assembly and association, right to participate in government and free elections, right to social security, right to desirable work and to join migrant trade unions and associations, right to rest and leisure, a right to adequate living standards, rights to housing and education, a right to participate in economic, social, and cultural life of community, a right to social order that articulates this document, community duties essentials for free full development, freedom from state or personal interference in the above. We then look at effects of immigration to human rights. Human rights violations against migrants include denial of civil and political rights, arbitrary detention, torture, lack of due process, lack of economic, social, and cultural rights, such as rights to health and education. As a migrant, you are protected against labor exploitation under ILO conventions, the ICRMW, and other human rights treaties. Article 11 of ICRMW explicitly prohibits forced labor, slavery, and servitude. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 14, which states that everyone has a right to seek and enjoy asylum, from refugee conversion and its 1967 protocol, which protects refugees from being returned to countries where they're seeking to be persecuted. Everyone has a right to seek and enjoy asylum in other countries' asylum from persecution. This right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions generally arises from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to purposes and principles of the United Nations. The role of OHCHR is to protect and promote human rights. It's the main office in the United Nations that deals with human rights, and it works to ensure that human rights standards are applied in all UN's activities. Migrants should be aware of these rights due to the fact that international law suffers from lack of enforcement mechanism, and human rights law is not exceptional. There is internal police that could implement the internal law since 2002. However, the world has a new criminal code built in terms of international law. No government or international organization enforces international law, although the United Nations Security Council may authorize enforcement. Going further, let's look at major forms of migrations. 1. Invasion. 2. Colonization. 3. Conquest. 4. Immigration. So dwelling deeper into immigration, a person who moves from their home due to forced calamities, natural disasters, or civil disturbance may be described as a displaced person if remains in the home country can be called an internally displaced person. And looking at types of immigration, there are different types of immigration one should know, and immigration can occur for many reasons. Permanent migrants intend to establish their permanent residence in a new country or place and possibly obtain their currencies and obtain that country's residence. 1. Counter-urbanization. 2. Immigration, moving from one country to another. 3. Immigration, moving into a new country. 4. Internal migration, moving within a state, country, or continent. 5. International migration, crossing state boundaries and stay in a host state for minimum length of time. 6. National immigration, immigration within a state for a maximum period of time. 7. External immigration, moving to a different state, country, or continent. 8. Rural-urban migration, migration from rural to urban areas within a state. We go further to look at cultural effects of immigration. Individuals who migrate experience multiple stresses that can impact their mental well-being, include loss of culture norms, religious customs, and social support system adjustment to new cultures and changes in identity and concept of self. And we go further to look at behavior change. A study on human behavior has revealed that 90% of the population can be classified into 4 basic personality types. 1. The optimistic. 2. The pessimistic. 3. The trusting personality. And 4. The envious personality. The envious personality is the most common, with 30% compared to 20% of each of the other groups. So, principles of effective behavior change. We have target and build specific knowledge and skills. That's an added advantage. Reduce the environment conditions that support negative behaviors and increase on conditions that support positive or desirable behaviors. Train in nationalistic conditions and settings. As we go further with the book, we now look at motivating behavior change, which entails of a collaborative approach, experiencing empathy. Selenicians who participate in motivational interviewing often employ reflective listening during a section, developing discrepancies with resistance, promoting self-efficiency, substance use, smoking, sensation, and weight loss. Motivational is the energy that directs our behavior. That energy can come from different resources. We can't be motivated to pursue the outcomes. So what is behavior change? Behavior change can refer to any transformation or modification of human behavior. Types of behavior: good behaviors and bad behaviors. Let's look at assumptions. Assuming you run out of the house, is it in order to run out of your boss's house when you have not finished his or her contract? Is it good behavior to move with earphones in your boss's house? Is it in order touching your nose while your bosses are eating or taking any meal? Is it in order to wipe your palm before your nose because your boss has used his perfume after a week without showering or after taking garlic? Is it in order to refuse or deny food or anything offered to you by your bosses? Think about that. Let's look at peer pressure or group influence. Definition of peer. Definition of group influence and pressure means influence from members of one group. Pressure groups like pretends to be possessed by ghosts of Jaja Chuanoka. Types of peer pressure. Spoken peer pressure. This is when a teenager asks or directs the other into a certain behavior. Unspoken peer pressure. Direct peer pressure, indirect peer pressure, positive and negative peer pressure. Looking at examples of peer pressure, choosing to go overseas just because your friends have gone, going to certain clubs where members of your group go, buying items you cannot afford because others have them, choosing to drop a job because others have dropped it, acquiring a smoking behavior, prostitution, salary influence, change of a country, change of a house. You may never know the house or country you are changing to is worse than the one you're leaving. Urge to marry a different race, white or black, because you think others are better off when married to such a race, so you feel pleased to get married. For example, my friend's boss sleeps with her for sex and gives her tips. Why don't I start seducing mine also to do the same? The youth tend to do this. Expounding on negative peer pressure. Need to dress or act the same way. Cheating or copying someone else's work. Not including certain people in the social activity. Dangerous risk when driving, using drugs or alcohol, shoplifting or stealing, engaging in sexual activities, engaging in bullying or cyberbullying, projecting a misleading or false image on social media. So what are the causes of peer pressure? Some of the causes of peer pressure are related to age. Peer pressure occurs when a group of people encourage each other to go along with certain beliefs or behavior. Among migrant workers, several domestic workers have been seduced and lured into behaviors of prostitution by their peers, partly because of their work-related tensions and confinement. Especially the youth develop a strong desire to fit a free life with their peers. Which are the warning signs of peer pressure? Any migrant that seriously migrated for a purpose would really watch out for the following warning signs to avoid falling into the pit of peer pressure. Low moods, fearfulness or feelings of hopelessness, aggression or antisocial behavior, sudden changes in behavior, often for no obvious reasons, trouble falling asleep, staying asleep or waking up early, loss of appetite or overeating, and reluctancy to go to school. Management of negative peer pressure. Pay attention to what you feel. If something does not feel right about a situation, it probably isn't. Even if your friends seem okay with what is going on, the situation may not be right for you. So plan ahead. Think about how you will respond in different situations. Learn what you can say or what you can do. Talk to the person who is pressuring you. Let him or her know how it makes you feel and tell the person to stop. Have a secret code to communicate with parents. Something you can say or text to say that you need to come home or they need to pick you up. Give an excuse. It should be okay to say no without needing to apologize or give an explanation, but it may make it easier to say no if you have a ready reason. Perhaps you have a medical reason such as asthma or allergies that makes it dangerous for you to take anything, or even stating that your parents need you to come home if you really feel it would be best to leave the situation altogether. So have friends with similar values and benefits. It's easier to say no if someone else is also saying it. Saying no together makes it easier for the both of you. Get support from a trusted entity or government, that is, Workers' Voice Association, such as a parent, senior fellows, or a labor counselor. A trusted parent of your company can listen to you and help you that may work in your situation. Now let's look at ignorance or less exposure. Think out of the box. When you less expose yourself, you see everything as new, so try to be inquisitive and enthusiastic. The less a man has seen, the more he gets surprised. Try to be enthusiastic, curious, and inquisitive. This book goes more to expand on language barrier, being a linguistic and learning more. For example, bosses will call you meaning ta'ali, and you might hear matari. Try to practice the language using children in jokes because it's simple to learn from them, especially when you get a chance of a house with kids. Mutual respect for religious and cultural affairs, adoption to their dress code, ways of praying, for example, by calling Jesus to fire or calling Adan in Roma adoption to their food. Pretend to fit in by trying to eat on what they eat even though you don't like it. But in inadequacy, where you would not eat all what they have served, for example, if you're allergic to meat or any kind of sauce, always find a soft and polite approach of rejection like thanks. Shukran mama, I'm full. I don't eat that or I'm allergic to it. Doesn't make sense. Don't say direct that I don't want or refuse to pick it up. Arabs eat together and have a culture of sharing or doing things as one of the most rewarding way of getting rewards. Things done together in congregation earn more blessings to their families, so they find it important by sharing even on what they have eaten. Or for example, food can be served on one big plate known as sania, inviting everyone to come and join them. Food can be served in a hierarchy from top to bottom with an intention of creating brotherhood in a family, and this normally ends with a maid, so one must adopt to this. Let's go further and look at devotion and determination. Learn to make a timetable for your work. Self-push tendency, love your job. Responsibility and accountability matters. Humbleness, to say sorry when you make a mistake. Subordination and flexibility, being adjustable where necessary. The strength of a chain is its softness. Accept to change, and change will change you. Accept to face off the reality that way. You get aligned in the changing world. Feel lonely and accept challenges in order to grow. Accept to be knocked down again and again, but never give up on your dream. Get yourself in the midst of the fight such that you can get experience as you know how it feels. Cultivate and nourish your job and see it as a baby. Put a smile in all you do as a sign of love and acceptancy for work. Even though you find obstacles, learn to weigh off situations and don't judge them. When you invest in emotions, then you kill the whole attitude. Avoid head talk and focus on bigger dreams. History articulation. What is your situation now? What is pushing you to leave or to change your current situation? What is your goal of choosing to leave your country, Uganda? Is it really necessary? Do you value your decision? Will you respect your decision when you meet challenges there? Let's look at goal disorientation. What are your target goals? Do you really know what you want? Which worst thing can someone do to you at work to make you fail? Problems and challenge management at work. What possible problems encountered at work? There is salary denial, forced labor, sexual harassment, denial of treatment, denial of communication. Know your rights better. Possible challenges to take caution of at work. Little food, excessive cleaning, exceeding the number of rooms per contract, forced transfer or change of house, forced to lift heavy things like gas cylinders, over-shouting of the boss, backing of the boss, denial of basic necessities like pads, Vaseline, and others, refusal of medical bill clearance, overworking. Then we go further to look at employee and employer motivation tips, appreciation letter writing, gifts and art pieces as a sign of appreciation, tips and outings. A domestic worker can choose to write a thanks letter to express his or her opinion politely with assertiveness, thus setting it on record with a copy of a letter kept in her secrecy or the other given to the lady boss especially. Arabs prefer greetings such as Assalamu alaikum, but in other regions you can begin with a normal greeting. Let's look at a sample letter. A letter to demand for salary. You could write, "Dear boss, I send my sincere greetings to you, and I am writing this small letter purposely to thank you so much for the opportunity you offered me to have this job with you. You have been there for me, you feed me, you give me shelter, you give me treatment when I'm sick, and all clothing you buy for me. I appreciate, and I want to promise you that I will not disappoint you. I know that sometimes I make mistakes during my work, but you have treated me as $1 million. Sincerely, I thank you so much for being understanding, and I hope for the best because I trust you. With you, I don't regret having left my family behind. I have met many people before, but your heart is a bit different. I believe in you, boss. You have given me protection, and I am sure that I am safe. However, I have been faced off with challenges, especially from home, that I would like to express to you. My entire salary is the one which my family feeds on. I feel a bit upset with sleepless nights every time I think about my little children sleeping on empty stomachs. This does not only affect my working cycle but also the moods. I'm sorry to appear with a little bit of attitude and tension sometimes, but it all comes because of my delayed salary. My only wish is that I am always paid before my sweat dries. I understand sometimes you also have setbacks and you can't pay me in time. My humble request is, at least you don't change your promises such that I can support my family too. I'll be humbled if I receive all my salary for the last months because I have a huge debt at home. Your maid, Kadongo Penina. Letter writing on rights demand. Below is an example of a sample letter that can be written to your boss on your rights demand or any challenges you face at work. Dear boss, I send my sincere greetings to you, and I am writing this small letter purposely to thank you so much for the opportunity you offered me to have this job with you. You have been there for me, you feed me, you give me shelter, you give me treatment when I'm sick, and all clothing you buy for me. I appreciate and I want to promise you that I will not disappoint you. I know that sometimes I make mistakes during work, but you have treated me as $1 million. I sincerely thank you so much for being understanding, and I hope for the best because I trust you. With you, I don't regret having left my family behind. I have met many people, but your heart is a bit different. I believe in you, boss. You have given me protection, and I'm sure that I am safe. However, I have been faced off with challenges, especially at work, that I would like to express to you. So there you state all the specific problem you're finding. And you go ahead to say, this does not only affect my working cycle, but also the moods. I'm sorry to appear with a little bit of attitude and tension. Sometimes it's all because of, again, you explain more about that specific problem you're facing. And then my humble request is at least you, blah, 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 you state. Your maid, you put your name. Then, there is an appreciation letter. This simple letter can be written to your boss expressing your appreciation of what he or she has offered to you. For example, you can write an appreciation letter after receiving your salary, when you're given a gift, taken on an outing, and so forth. You can write such a letter on your boss's birthday, special occasions like Eid and any other celebrations. Remember to always be appreciative whenever your boss fulfills his or her obligations for you. This shall be the key to be loved by your bosses. So you can write something like this. Dear boss, I send my sincere greetings to you. I'm writing this letter to you extending my sincere appreciation for the love you show me. I really take you as my parents. I am so thankful that you choose me to work in your house. You have provided me with shelter, food, and monthly salary you pay me. The medical treatment, all the necessities you provide me with. The way you treat me as well as protecting me. I am really so appreciative. Today being your birthday, I would like to extend my warm birthday wishes to you. May the Almighty fulfill your desires. I love you. Your maid, and then you fill in your name. That is a better letter for appreciation. We look at gifts and art pieces as a sign of appreciation as well. You can sometimes give small gifts to your boss for a good he or she has done for you. Gifts like drawing, an art piece, and others. We look at tips and outings. When your boss tips you or takes you on an outing, it's good to receive your tip, but with caution. Always be skeptical to receive free things because you might be taken advantage of when it turns out a necessity for you to pay back. Some bosses may not tell you the reason of offering you small gifts, yet indeed these things can turn out to be a regret and lead you into a compromise. You for outings gradually, introducing you to their families or family members. But as you keep accepting, this may land you into traps for extra work, where you will notice that as you visit a family, they will introduce you to gradually supporting them in some housework, like ironing, washing utensils, cleaning more rooms, cooking, name it. But as you enjoy the outing, ensure that it does not become a habit. And if it ever turns out to be a habit, be mindful to ask for an extra pay. Extra work, extra pay. Duties and obligations of migrant workers to their country. Abide by the terms and conditions of contract. Observe and respect the laws, customs, norms, traditions, and practices of the country in which he or she is working. Abide with the requirements on remittance of earning, as well as to provide material help to his or her family or his or her overseas employment. Uphold the ideas of your country of origin and to defend it if warranted. Abide by the rules and regulations aimed to promoting the workers' interest and enriching national gains. Be the ambassador of goodwill, projecting only the good in your country of origin and restrain from tarnishing its image abroad. Provide the agency or employer with correct and true statements or certifications regarding his or her skills, experience, and qualifications. Maintain a high level of productivity as well as abide by company rules and regulations. refrain from committing acts which are detrimental to the interest of his or her employer or agency during his or her documentary assessing an employment. Sense of professionalism. Even though you are not highly educated, all you do must carry common sense. Be the manager of your work, house manager that is. Learn to tell and advise your boss where necessary, but avoid familiarity. Have a self-push tendency in you before you are told. Situation analysis at work. Before taking an action at work, you must remember Newton's third law of motion that states, for every action, which is force, in nature, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you begin by hating your boss, expect the same in return. Your boss will also hate you. If you begin by rejecting the work you must do, expect your boss to delay your salary or even minimize it. If you start telling your boss to buy you a ticket or to return you to office before assessment, your boss is most likely going to react equally back to you, even sometimes with a greater magnitude that may not save only rather to sum it from the point that they have seen their last days of life because of poor decision making over. Overreacting, paranoid, acting with ego, when sometimes with no clear evidence about their reactions. Take your boss as you and often try to slow down and think before reacting back to their provocations towards you. Normally, difficult situations are hard to manage. Critical dilemma that is. But when you seek guidance from the right people before acting, that is your embassy, your company, and migrant workers' voice, you will always have to overcome them. Knowing often where you come from and how far you have come, and believe that in the due course of achieving success, challenges and problems are meant to strengthen us. Therefore, any decision taken after a challenge or an obstacle must be well calculated and in proportion to your future. In any decision taken, a dilemma that drives you off track is definitely an unfortunate decision made, since it does not improve you in any way, but it can only sometimes be used in situations where your life is at stake or crossroads. This teaches us to learn to persevere and carry on if situations do not cost our lives. Let's look further into institutionalization. A migrant worker should avoid being institutionalized. In the sense, we refer to the behavior patterns of a migrant worker who has been raised in an institution such as a home, factory, company, agency that offer a long period of time of working. In that setting, he or she intentionally gets used, even become workaholic, increasing the sensitivity of his or her situation, familiarity that is, which gradually makes his or her boss used to him as a family member, whereby they see no relevance of paying him or her salary. Batuuka ekiseera nga oluddewo nnyo okoze nnyo nabo wafuuka wa famire eyo n'atuuka ekiseera nga talaba na nsonga lwaki akusasula. Arabs normally say, a visitor remains a visitor for 3 days. Therefore, migrants should be mindful of standing up for who they are and endeavor to focus on doing what brought them and avoid being used or going off track or overridden. Adaptation and fitting in. Adaptation is the state of being adapted where living organisms are able to live and remain productive in a given setting or habitats. Like animals are known to be adaptive to different environments, and that is nature. First, we look at nature. This is the basic or inherent features, characters, or qualities of something. In short, it's internal features or characters of someone. For example, pride, prejudice, exaggeration, concoctions, gloomy, moody, attitude, paranoid, hardness of someone, provoker, mean, so shy, poor-hearted, cheap popularity, individualism, short-temperedness, sluggishness, laziness, and so many others. One needs to observe the above-mentioned characters in both nature and nurture as something that may require him or her to also compromise about others in any setting or environment one chooses to work from. You must remember that your boss or workmate can also be a human, and you therefore understand their weaknesses, and your own remains a big subject to maintain your job and advance your future. Looking at nurture. Well, nurture means care for and protect someone or something while growing, or a new environment you move to and find yourself adopting to the surrounding. In other terms, nature is what we think and is influenced by genetic inheritance and other biological factors, while nurture is generally taken as influence of the external factors after conception. For example, the product of exposure, life experience and learning on an individual. On the other hand, Nurture are things that are influenced by the environment we live in. Principles of nurture. Children's learning is understood developmentally. 2. The classroom environment offers a safe base. 3. The importance of nurture to the development of well-being. 4. The language is a vital means of communication. 5. All behavior is communication. 6. The importance of transition in children's lives. Let's look at sexual issues at work and how to overcome them. This is a challenge mostly faced by female workers, whereby it can either be precipitated either from bosses or the workmates themselves. What is workplace sexism? Ways to deal with sexism at work. What is the difference between relationship and falling in love? How to handle a sexist boss. There are two types of sexism. Overt sexism. This is the most serious form of sexism about stuffs we all talk to so often. We have started to make those sexual harassment videos in the order of the day as a joke. That is to say, we do not take it serious. Unwanted sexual harassments we know cause harm to our well-being and sense of oppression in our workplaces or offices. This is why overt behavior is commonly assumed to be the most damaging type of sexism, since one may not realize its graveness or repercussions. It can take someone's reputation down. For example, your boss can start sending you sex videos and pictures as a joke, which can end up attracting your mind to slip into a trap of being violated sexually once you do not contain your head. Casual sexism. This is where things get more interesting. This could also be called latent sexism. It's so ingrained in a company culture that often passes by unnoticed. Maybe you do not even notice it happening, but you just experience a subtle feeling of alienation or even imposter syndrome. Think harmless, sexist jokes, money spreading, or even those times your boss treats your male colleagues marginally different from you. The recent studies found out casual sexism produces just as much of negative impact, and this may require more assertiveness of women to overcome. 4 ways to overcome sexism at work. Don't settle for double standards. That is, if your boss calls your male co-workers by their last names but calls you by your first name, speak up and ask why. It can feel scary, but that is assertiveness, because often double standards are so ingrained. Double standards can also be observed in bosses wanting to give you tips even after doing nothing, claiming to be appreciating your beauty, and so on. Others can even choose to tip your salary or give a salary advance. Such and more happens when workers don't realize they are enabling double standards. Asking why brings perspective into the situation, forcing the offender to consider their actions publicly. In fact, you might want to ask that person if he or she would have done or said the same thing to you if you were the same sex. Ekyokulabira ku katugambe, singa boosi wo musajja gwe ng'oli mukazi ye ng'akuwa tiipu ezo wandimubuuzizza, era singa mbadde musajja wandizimpadde, beera mukalabakalaba. Wabamu ensonga lwaki abalala ne bakuyita erinnya banno abalala bakozi nti Serunkuma Abdul gwe naye nga bakuyita liryo Belinda oba Belly, ebintu bwe bityo. Faayo nnyo. Anyway, as we go further, by calling him or her out in a clear but non-aggressive way, you bring light to the issue and force him to assess his own behavior. Sometimes sexism really is just something being insensitive, but being assertive, cool, and speaking straight up front would help you solve the whole issue shortly before harm. And if assertiveness does not work, we shall be real to you that you have to create a paper trail of sorts, like a letter, so that you can lodge a formal complaint. In this letter, you can be requested to first appreciate your oppressor in line of attracting him to understand your discontentment. All this also means that if you happen to be a manager or in a position of seniority, you should confront sexism behavior, even if it's not at you. Speak up for other women just as you would want them to speak for you. Again, workplace sexism is a common culture, so you have got to address it much assertively, as one bad joke, inappropriate comment affects or ruins your entire work future. Find allies in your workplace or join workers' associations and unions, then speak to them, as well as sharing experiences on how to overcome. How are they feeling? Even if your experiences on how to overcome are different, it often helps to discuss things with co-workers, especially if they had more experiences in the industry or company. It puts things in perspective. Speaking to fellow senior workers also means you have some more objectives and experience to consider your problems. Your approach should not make your boss guilty, rather make him understand politely that you are indeed a responsible person and not yet ready to be indulged in such, you can report to the authorities, embassy, company agencies, and Migrant Workers' Voice. It does not hurt to bring them up in labor disputes court. It helps to present a possible solution when you bring out such touchy problems close to the authorities or mediators. Overt sexism. If it's over sexism, one must speak up. To be clear, sexism at workplaces is unacceptable, and therefore no one should be allowed in your life to take a chance on you. And if you are being sexually harassed, that is, the boss sexually molestes you or jumps at you unaware or feel uncomfortable at work, don't pass. Go ahead straight and report the behavior to higher authorities by taking precautions of being safety conscious as you keep your evidence. Some countries, like in the Gulf, may require about 4 witnesses to verify your accusations, so you must be careful. Nevertheless, if at all you're sure about the incidents that happened to you, the authorities like the embassy and police will be able to support you, bring it out with the aid of medical checkups and other possible proceedings to ascertain the truth. Be sure you will be compensated, settled over in court or out of court if you stand by the truth. Please note, avoid assumptions and lies, because it may end the whole of your life in jail if the accused or your boss ever challenges you. Let's dwell and explain more about assertiveness. This is the quality of being self-assured and confident without being aggressive, or being able to stand up for your own or other people's lives in a calm or polite way without being either aggressive or passively accepting wrong, that is. What it requires to be assertive. Point out your concerns as you appreciate the provocation, but point out your concern as you appreciate the provocation, but point out your concern with calmness and do not condemn. If problems continue, play the hardball. This is usually after the initial education round of dialogue about how you feel. If your boss doesn't get your issue, then it's time to make it personal. Assertiveness techniques to use in any situation. 1. Communication techniques. 2. Effective techniques. 3. Confidence techniques. 4. Self-confidence techniques. 5. Influencing techniques. So, tolerance and adherence. When at work, especially overseas, you need to have a heart of tolerance and adherence. 1. Definition of tolerance. It means the capacity to endure the continued objection to something, such as drugs or environmental conditions, without adverse reactions. Then, definition of adherence. This means to believe in and follow the practices of certain ideology, that is, religious norms, cultural norms, organization norms. Or, it also means having a sense of strong attachment. Therefore, migrant workers must know life cannot be a success without tolerance and adherence to our choices. One needs to stand choices of life if he or she must achieve the best. So in all we do, we must learn to adhere to the norms and cultures of the places where we choose to work. Nobody will accomplish your work unless you. Nobody is going to earn your salary except you. So you must learn to adhere. Nobody is going to achieve your success, so love it, work for it, nourish it, and get it because it's your success, so try to adhere. Section 18, Part 3. We look at collective bargaining. This is a process of negotiation between employers, that is bosses, and a group of employees aimed at agreements to regulate work salaries, working conditions, benefits, or other aspects of workers' compensations and rights of workers. The term collective bargaining is made up of 2 words. Collective means a group of action through representation. Bargaining means negotiation which involves proposals and counter-proposals, offers and counter-offers. This means collective negotiations between employer and employee relating their work situations. The success of this negotiation depends upon mutual understandings and give and take principles, win-win situations between the employers and the employees. In this sense, migrants should endeavor to be encouraged to join their member associations or unions and voices, which can help them during the course of collective bargaining, and they should restrain themselves from confronting labor disputes or standing alone to challenge their bosses, which renders them vulnerable to show them many repercussions as many lack protections of their identities. In Uganda, migrant workers can join associations like Migrant Workers' Voice Network Association, that is MWVAN, or Migrant Workers' Voice Labor Organization before leaving the country. Financial matters at work overseas. Regarding finances, one requires financial discipline, entitled with skills of saving with an ambition target, business plan with a higher sense of economizing. Being economical in your life may sometimes seem to be a kind of mean tendency or action about someone. But to someone who is growing, you need to adapt such tendency of saving in order if he or she must evolve and uplift her standards of life. Migrant workers stand more chances of practicing on their saving culture and skills since they have at least got a better source of income. Oftentimes, migrant workers have left their countries without a clear agenda. This has in turn backfired on them while they reach their destination countries for work, and they begin to see no meaning of why they should be saving the little they have earned and why they shouldn't be spending what they have earned. Others begin not to see any reason of why they should continue suffering, yet what they earn can give them a financial freedom to spend it and enjoy it while overseas. Saving is a heart of resilience that requires someone to have a point of focus, that is, a sense of why I must achieve it or get it. We all have good intentions when it comes to saving money right. We tell ourselves we will start saving once we hit a specific age or get any pay raise, or even when someone else has done it, then I will do. But in reality, you will start saving money when you develop healthy money habits, and your future needs to become more important than your current ones. Oftentimes, our goals to save money is not a big priority to delay the purchase of the new smartphone, paying your children's school fees in a very expensive kindergarten, buying kitchen table, television, etc. So we spend our dollars away, or worse, getting into debt to fuel our latest bout of what it is. That debt then turns into a monthly payment that controls our paychecks and our lives. It sounds overwhelming, right? It doesn't have to be with few tricks to your spending priorities. You will be one of the first tricks to saving money in on time. Let's look at practical ways to save money. Say goodbye to debts. Monthly debt payments are the biggest obstacle to saving money. Debts rob you of income, so it's about time to get rid of debts. The first way to pay off debts is with debt snowball method. This is where you pay off your debts in order of smallest to largest. This sounds kind of intense, right? Don't worry, it's more about behavior change than numbers. Once your income is freed up, you can finally use it to make progress towards your saving goal. Cut down on luxuries and groceries. You don't need to spend much on buying luxuries and foodstuffs, that is groceries, out of your blueprint. Try to save money on groceries by planning out your meal each week and by taking a good look before you order for more from stores, because why would you love to buy more of what you already have? You might also want to leave the kids at home with their father so that you can stick more close to your target list. And if you really try to find the way to save money, try grocery pickups. If you don't want to spend, avoid going where groceries are. Cancel automatic subtractions and memberships. Those often consume our money unknowingly. One should watch his or her phone or things like automatic data upload, green subscriptions, and the Amazon Prime, and make sure you return off automatically renewal when you make a purchase. Though the ILO research with employers of domestic workers in Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, as well as other research carried out with domestic workers, it's clear that in the absence of an effective system of regulation of the sector, employers take regulations into their own hands, leading to behaviors such as a domestic worker to leave the house on the worker's weekday off, which breaches international standards. Some of the core concerns expressed with the employees relate to potential economical loss of allowing freedom of movement of the workers, including their fear that they might lose the investment that they have made to bring the worker in the country of destination if he or she runs away, commits a crime, or becomes pregnant. Travel tips of migrant workers under safe labor migrations. During and after coronavirus period, migrant workers should know that most of the international flights were suspended due to the pandemic, and if one must travel, he or she should keep up to date with the information from your airline or tour operator on the impact and any existing plans. All travelers into other destination countries are required to enter quarantine facilities for 14 days. Observing social distance in queues is very important. Some of the possible requirements before traveling. Please note this very carefully. Valid passport and visa, medical reports, a notebook and a pen, a phone and a portable charger. At least one should have some dollars in cash, Visa or MasterCards. Bring copies of your passports where possible. Save all documents on an email, for example academic documents. Register with your embassy as soon as you reach the country of destination. Make sure you have your country bank account with a Visa card, and make sure your credit card will work in the country of destination. Make sure you do last medical checkups and avoid unprotected sexual intercourse in case you are engaged. For workers required to work without pregnancies, leave a copy of your passport with your next of kin. Look up for the foreign exchange rates to understand the currencies of your destination countries. Master a few greeting words for the country of destiny. Make sure you take yellow fever vaccination. Some destinations will require you an Interpol certification. Hope you get that right. Let's look at travel safety tips. Do's and don'ts. First, we look at the do's. Some destinations require proof to a negative COVID-19 test. Travel with a small handbag. Travel with some sanitary pads and tissues. One can carry an empty bottle, which can carry cold and warm or feeling at any water point to avoid sharing of cups. Endeavor to carry a simple jacket or sweater due to weather changes of country of destination. Wear rubber shoes to avoid inconveniences while checking in. Have a small front bag to keep your travel documents like passports and tickets close to your body to avoid losing them in due process of transit. Exchange your local currencies before checking in and leave some amounts in local if you must buy anything like drinks and snacks before boarding the plane at your local country of exit, that is the airport. Be sure of every step you check that you may not need to come back to avoid inconveniences. Belts and other metallic objects attached to your body may not be allowed through the airport check system. Therefore, pack them with caution. Laptops and other electronic gadgets may be required to be screened separately and sometimes be subjected to taxes at entry and exit, especially if carried in more than one item. One must take caution of that. Have a sound sleep the day before you travel to avoid dozing in transit and losing your property. Watch your circadian rhythms. Our circadian rhythm follow the day and night cycle to avoid missing flights in transit, especially when you've traveled for long hours. Due to conditioned response, missed sleeping hours. One can have more than one visa for different destination countries, especially on visit, but for working reasons, it's always one in one destination country. Cross-check your visa status online with destination country missions or embassies in your country before checking in at the airport. Always keep alert at the weighing area of the airport. Watch your ticket flight number as it reads on the monitor, and always listen for the calling of your checking time at the airports or train stations. While on board behavior, to take precautions and orders of airline attendants, avoid misbehaving. If you get upsets or sickness on board, do not hesitate to seek for treatment or pain relievers, because in the plane, there is a first aid facility for your health needs. Let's look at the don'ts. These are things you should not do. Avoid tourist visas, especially when you are going for work in countries where they're not convertible into work permits. Avoid individual visa agents that will not have migrant accreditation. Avoid drug dealers. Abandoned handbag luggage is a potential tool for drug dealers and smugglers, so always keep your handbags close to you in tight vicinity so that nobody takes advantage before and on board. Avoid medical tests that require your surgery first before travel. Those are traps of drug dealers that may use drugs to smuggle in body organs. Avoid empathy and sympathizing during checking and in transit. Don't carry other people's luggage. Mind your own, even if you know them. Don't carry sharps like razor blades, needles, knives. Avoid traveling with huge sums of cash to avoid falling of money laundering victim. Make sure you don't leave your luggage for each step you check in, especially after checking in your big luggage. Keep your hand luggage close to you all time because pocket pickers are never immune at the airport. So why do people migrate? 3 in 4 migrations are labor-oriented. Literally, there are almost not enough jobs in all countries, and therefore people are left to make choices with the liberty to migrate at any time they wish. Evidence from different studies suggests that migration results from significant welfare increases. Selman's 2011, Roderick 2002, and Winters 2003. As such, developed countries can increase welfare by opening doors to migration. Major reasons of migration. Economic migration. Most people migrate for economic reasons, thus moving to find work or follow a particular career path. Social migration. People move somewhere for better quality of life, leisure, or to be closer to family or friends. Political migration, where people move to run away from political persecutions or war, seeking asylum in particular places. And we look at the advantages. It has a richer and more diverse culture. It helps to reduce labor shortages. Migrants are more prepared to take on low-paid and low-skilled jobs compared to different destination countries. It increases exposure. There is benefit from returns and remittances. And the disadvantages: increasing costs of services such as healthcare and education, overcrowding, disagreements between different religions and culture. It can attract bad vices and behavior. Migration reduces the available supply of labor, particularly skilled labor. Some of the effects of migration: people's poverty levels make them unable to live a happy life. Children growing up in poverty have no access to proper nutrition, education, or health. Migration increases slum areas in cities, which increases many problems such as unhygienic conditions, crime, and pollution. We now go to the section that has caused a lot of mistakes to people's migration purposes. Understanding this is very important. Contract understanding. What is a contract? This is an agreement between an employer and an employer, sponsor, boss, and domestic worker, used in labor law to attribute rights and responsibilities between parties to a bargain. 4 types of contracts. 1. Lump sum or fixed price contracts. 2. Cost plus contracts. 3. Time and material contracts. 4. Unit price contract. What is a valid contract? A valid contract is a written or expressed agreement between 2 parties to provide a product or service. There are especially 6 elements of contracts that make it a legal and binding document. The difference between an agreement and a contract: an agreement exists where there is a mutual understanding regarding the rights and responsibilities among parties to a business agreement. And what about a contract? Contract is an agreement between respective parties that create legal binding obligations. Domestic workers contract. Importance. The importance of domestic workers contract: it shows responsibility, it shows penalties, it shows basis for less intervention, families' relationships. Terms and conditions of a contract. A contract clearly spells and stipulates your workplace. Be mindful of being antagonized. Contract duration. Contract durations range from country to country. Endeavor to understand the duration of your contract. Normally, salaries are paid at the end of the month, so be mindful of your salary as the contract states it. Open up an account for saving your salary. 9 hours for resting daily and 1 day off weekly. Transport and medication provided by the boss. In case of renewal of a contract, a 1-month holiday is given to one employee before restarting a new contract. Return of the remains of the employee in cases of death. Provision of clothing, food, and other necessities are provided by the boss. Penalties are charged for domestic workers who run away and refuse to work. Contract termination. Be mindful of your reactions amidst challenges at work. Requests like "take me back to office," "buy me a ticket to go back home," "change my house now," demonstrations by dressing up in a uniform on request to be taken to office. Choosing to run away instead of solving your challenges amicably may lead you into hot soup of contract breaching, and sometimes it can be a trap set by your boss to either deliberately provoke you into situations and outbursts of contract violation. The most common type of extra workout of contract to take caution of: one must decide to do them by choice. Where possible, she can ask for an extra pay. Things like climbing ladders and washing cars, name it. For instance, some bosses can delay your salary with an intention to test your patience, and also an excuse to create smart reasons for you to voluntarily drop the job and run away, and ends up slapping an escape case on you. So don't be tempted to fall in the trap. In another trap, bosses can tease you with money, items, and jewelry, so that when you're provoked to run away and end up at the police, they'll always attach you to theft of money and other treasures. And if not careful, one may end up in jail. Others are traps of rape so that they give up on their own. Avoid sentiments and actions that can drive your boss to claim that you can voluntarily terminate the contract for compensation before letting you go anywhere. It's always advisable to settle your labor disputes through immediate reporting of the situation, counseling and guidance, accepting mediation between you and your boss, willing to solve the matter by the embassy officials and authorities, and the least you can ever do is to risk dropping your job, changing to another house or workplace. It should be in your mind that a domestic worker's contract is always one, and avoid being tempted to believe in second chances. These may also carry more risks than your previous housework. Even though the contract gives a chance for you to change from one house to another, it should never be your priority in case of challenges, since it may fetch you and your company costs of replacement and compensation if not done in the right specified time in the contract. One should master all the above at the fingertips without ignorance of the law in order to abstain herself from falling a victim of circumstances. Social media network influence. A serious and focused migrant worker on a contract is expected to distance of herself from social media diversions, lies that may easily tempt her to turn or breach her contract terms due to excitement. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment means any protective clothing especially designed, treated, or fabricated to protect someone from work hazards that are caused by extreme environmental conditions or dangerous working environments. Tutwalira ziglavu, headgear, boots n'ebirala byonna. Types of personal protective equipment include head and scalp protection, respiration protection, eye protection, hearing protection, hand and arm protection, foot and leg protection, body protection, height and access protection. Examples of protective gear include gloves, helmet, shoes, goggles and glasses, apron and gowns, name it. A worker should be informed and should confidently ask for personal protective equipment. A worker should always ask for PPE to stop the spread of germs and the effects of dangerous chemicals like detergents that are used in cleaning. So as we conclude, note: do not accept to be seduced to do extra work outside your contract unless paid. For example, car washing, farming, lifting heavy weights like gas cylinders, climbing ladders and trees for harvest, cleaning fans and massaging, unless having a skill in that, since they can put your life at risk. Stand your ground to resist that assertively. The end of edition 1. To be continued. The end of the Made at Work Overseas Labor Education Program or LEP proposed book, A Historic Experience-Based Approach for Labor Challenges and Problems, prepared by Migrant Workers Voice Organization by Kayonde Abdallah, PO Box 35377 Kampala. More details, +256 775 184 629 or +256 700 775 501 or the hotline +256 393 333 331. Migrant Workers Voice Organization. Voice for the voiceless.